Let's get into it. We're gonna break down all of the new talents because if you didn't know, whoa, I got some info for you. We got some new talents, and we got, well, they're not exactly leaks because the developers put on some Twitch streams about them and showcased the new talents coming in Chapter 2 for Spellbreak. So today, we're just going to run through all of the new talents and talk about them, mind, body, and spirit, and talk about, what are the pitfalls to avoid in these new talents? What are the good talents? Maybe some builds, a build for each class, something like that. We'll just run through them, and then we'll get a little hyped, I think, for Chapter 2, because Chapter 2 is on the way, and yeah, it might already be here by the time you're watching this. And I think there are some really cool talents in here, and there are some nice omissions from the talent pool, from the talents that we had previously, and there are some nice inclusions and some nice switch arounds and mix em ups and stuff like that. So some interesting things have happened with the talents. So let's hop into it. Let's freaking do it. In body, we're gonna start with a 1-point talent again, and that's tough. And tough gives you an increased amount of max armor. You get 10 more armor, 12, 15, and 25. Kind of weird for it to be 12 more armor because like everything else goes by 5s in the game, but you know, that's neither here nor there. You get some more armor, and that's nice. You know, like I said, all of these 1-point talents are nice little buffs. There's no downside to them. There are no builds where they're like useless or something. I guess if you're running like there's no like recklessness is gone, right? So there's no benefit now to not having armor at any point. So I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to think. I don't think there's any benefit to ever not having armor. So tough is just a nice little bonus. You know, if you got 1 point left over, not a bad thing to pick up. It's not a huge thing or anything, but it's a nice little, you know, extra 25, 10 to 25 armor. That's not bad. Into the 2-point talents for body, we got Dexterity, which is sort of a combination between Escapist and Dexterity from before. So now you get the run speed boost that was in Escapist, and you get the levitation mana cost decrease in that was in Dexterity before. So a nice combination, joining together some of the better effects from those two things. It's a 2-point, which isn't so bad. And yeah, you now, I think, I'm pretty sure this fixes how crazy powerful Spring Step was, because I don't know if you guys didn't know, in the last patch, if you combined Dexterity with Spring Step, it gave you an increased jumping height, and it decreased the mana cost for your levitation. So you could like just jump, you could jump forever. I mean, you could keep up if you had like runic fluency with Spring Step. You could keep up with flyers. You could basically go as far as flyers in the amount of time they did, which was just super broken. So hopefully, I think this reels that back in. I'm not totally sure, but I'm pretty sure this will reel back in Spring Step a little bit, which is a nice nerf to that rune. And this is just a nice buff. I know, I mean, I would say it all the time, but I mostly play Spellbreak just to be fast. So I'm definitely going to be putting on Dexterity in some of my builds because, I mean, it's just like, it makes it easier to get around. So that's really nice, especially for some of the classes that don't have like a lot of class movement inside the class, you know, like Stone Shaper or Conduit. It's nice to just be a little bit faster, a little bit more agile, get up to places a little bit easier since you don't have that in-class movement. Dexterity, a nice little skill, a nice little talent. The next one is Wellspring. And this is another one I have problems with, because I think the first part of this ability, the mana recharge rate increasing by 25%, so you recharge your mana 25% faster. I think that's an awesome ability, and that's a really that's a nice tool like that you can use. You know, it helps you at all stages of the Spellbreak experience, right? Always getting that mana back faster. I think that's awesome. But the second part of the ability, just, I mean, I'm kind of like baffled by it, to be honest. So on 0 mana, you get a spell damage buff, which seems so counterintuitive to design to me, because you're basically like, so I don't know if you guys know, when you go to 0 mana, you have this mana recharging effect where you can't do anything. You have to go through this animation to before you get your mana back, which is, you know, it's a penalty for not using your mana well. You have mana is a resource. I actually just taught. We're gonna have to go back and like tweak some of the Spellbreak Academy lesson that I gave, because I recently was recently asked to teach one of the Spellbreak Academy lessons put on by Proletariat and Element, the devs for Spellbreak, and the competitive scene, being Proletariat and Element respectively. They asked me to come in and teach a class all about different resource management, and part of that was your mana management. And so, you know, as you play Spellbreak, you will realize as you go along that you should not be mana resetting, because it's just it means that you are wasteful with your mana, and that you didn't use that resource well, and you get punished for it. And you know that kills a lot of people, because in the middle of a fight they mana reset. It leaves them as a sitting duck. Someone can just come in and, you know, toss some damage on them and they get exiled. But this ability gives you a buff for mana resetting, which to me, I mean, I'm trying to think about like what else does that. I mean, it feels like if you're playing football and your quarterback throws an interception, it's like if there was a rule that on the next set of downs, then you got 12 people, you could put 12 people on the field. Like you had an extra person on the field. Like, why your quarterback threw an interception? That's a bad thing that you shouldn't do. So why are you giving a buff to it after? You know, it's like, it really just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why. I don't understand this design implementation, or this, you know, this thinking about this from a design perspective. I'm not sure why this is, because Wellspring could very easily just take the mana recharge rate, the, you know, faster mana recharge rate, and just have that be the scroll thing, right? Where you're like, whatever, 15% for no scrolls, 20% for one scroll, 25%, maybe 35% for max scrolls, or something like that, where you know your mana charge is a lot faster as you go. But this, I mean, I don't know. I've said my piece. I don't really understand this. From a design perspective, it seems like you're rewarding people for doing something bad. But, you know, oh well, that's how it is. And I think Wellspring is actually, I mean, how it's set up, it's gonna be used a lot, and it's gonna be used in a lot of different builds, because it does give you a spell damage buff. So it's, you know, you're gonna be hitting harder at different times, and just the mana recharge rate, I think, is a really good buff just by itself. So I think Wellspring will actually be used a lot, but I just kind of question it from a design perspective. Moving on to the 3-point body talents. Here we got a familiar one in Vigor. Now I kind of forget if Vigor received a buff at all. I forget exactly what the numbers were before. So you maxed out. So Vigor, if you don't know, it increases your max health from now 25, 30, 35 up to 50. So you can have 150 health with Vigor, which was the max that there was before. I kind of forget the other numbers, but basically it functions very similarly, where it just increases your max health, which is nice for some tanky builds out there, you know, for some Stone Shaper builds where you get extra armor, now you get extra health as well, and, you know, maybe some Pyromancer builds where you're, you know, some of the more W key classes where you're going to be in the middle of a fight, you're going to be taking damage. It just allows you that little bit more from that resource, where you can stave off disruption in exilation or something, I don't know, being exiled, and you can finish off some fights with that extra resource there. Vigor, it costs 3 points now, so it cost 3 points before, which was, you know, the most that a talent could cost. Now it costs 3 points still, which I think is pretty balanced. I think it's pretty fair. You know, looking at some of the other 3-point talents in here, I think Vigor will be actually picked more often now. You think of, you know, what, you got seven points to pick from. So, you know, we already talked about Hardened from Mind. I think taking Hardened in Vigor will make you like a really beefy a brawler. I think a lot of Stone Shapers will take that, and then you'll have 1 point left over to take from the Spirit 1 point talent, which is also another good one. I think there are some good builds that you can form with Vigor now. So I'm kind of excited to see what people do. I think Vigor is a pretty decent talent, and especially if you're in a team setting, it allows you to function as kind of like the tank or the front of the fight, which is pretty cool. The second 3-point talent for body is Fellowship, and Fellowship is its own talent now, but it was sort of part of the old Thirsty talent. So Thirsty is a talent in Spirit, you can see over there, but it's sort of been split into two now. You know, we had other talents that came together to form talents like Dexterity. Now we have a talent that's been split up. So Thirsty no longer has the area of effect that is put into Fellowship. So any healing affects nearby teammates at 25, 50, 75, and 100% efficiency. So the area of effect that Thirsty had is actually way better now with Fellowship, but it's its own standalone talent, and it applies to any healing effects. So we'll see some other healing effects as we go through here, but you know, just thinking about drinking potions, now I would assume that it's the same range. So nearby teammates is teammates within 30 meters. That's what it meant in Thirsty. I'm not 100% sure if that's the same area of effect for Fellowship, but I would kind of assume that it would be. So since they're using the same language for it, right? So nearby teammates within 30 meters receive healing at 25% efficiency, which is actually pretty low when you start, but as you read scrolls, it goes up to 100%. So anything that you heal, your teammates heal as well, and I would imagine that is both health and shield, which is really nice. I think Fellowship is going to be another, especially in like duos and squads. Fellowship is going, obviously, you know, wouldn't be used in solos, right? So in duos and squads, it's going to be one that's used a lot, especially in certain classes that are more backline. So if you think Vigor as being the front line, you know, a talent for the frontline fighters, Fellowship is going to be a talent for the backline fighters. You know, your Frostborns, your Conduits are going to make a lot of use out of Fellowship, I would think, in the team games, the team competitions as we go. And yeah, it's just a good ability. You know, I think you really want to get your scrolls for this one because it works way better when your max scrolls, and just each scroll that you get, it works way better, right? 25% increase for each scroll, holy. So yeah, it's a nice one. I like Fellowship. It's kind of a bummer because I use Thirsty in like every single build that I used previously. So it's kind of a bummer that we don't have Thirsty in its original state anymore, but I think it's kind of fair to break up Thirsty, especially since we don't have recovery in the game, spoilers, but we don't have recovery in the game at all anymore. So I think if Thirsty stayed in its original state, then everyone would just be taking Thirsty like at all times. So I think it's kind of fair to split these up, and it makes for some interesting builds and some interesting things that you can do with Fellowship. We'll talk about that in a bit. Moving on to the 4-point body talents, we got Ambidextrous, which is the first one, which is now a 4-point talent, and it's also, you'll notice that a lot of these talents, even if they have remained basically similar to what they were before, a lot of these talents are in different categories, or you know, there are a lot of things have changed about them. So Ambidextrous used to be a spirit talent that cost 3 points. Now it's a body talent that costs 4 points, and it does basically the same thing. It actually received a buff as well. So you know, the main ability is that when you have Ambidextrous, you gain the first level skill of your offhand gauntlet. So, you know, if you have a wind gauntlet offhand, you get wind jump. If you have a fire gauntlet offhand, you get combust from, you know, pyromancer, going on like that. And which is a nice little like utility build for Ambidextrous. Costs 4 points, which is a lot, but there was a buff, like I said. So your offhand spell mana cost had a reduction before. Now that reduction is the mana cost reduction is just even higher. So I think it was like 7 to start or something like that, 7%. Now it's 10%, 15%, 20%, 35%. So the mana cost, I mean, that's a big mana cost reduction. 35% less mana. I mean, you know, whatever your offhand is, you can just cast it for days now, which is pretty cool. I like that a little bit, that ability, and I like that it got buffed here, especially with Ambidextrous going to a 4-point talent. You know, I think Ambidextrous was a fun talent before, but there were just better builds in the game. I think this is one that I'll really have to play a little bit to see, but I think Ambidextrous might actually provide a lot of value in the new talent meta. We'll have to see, but especially, you know, combining it with something like Spellslinger, where you have a bunch of different gauntlets in your pocket and you can switch between them. That might provide a lot of value with Ambidextrous, and since it's a 4-point talent, you know, that's going to be one of your main picks is Spellslinger with Ambidextrous, which is cool. I like Ambidextrous. It makes for fun builds, at least, and that'll continue here. Now, onto the last 4-point body talent. We have another trap because Athletic is another ability that probably sounds really cool when you read it. So on reading a body scroll, you gain 1 character level. So basically your class level, right? You go up a class level, and that would mean that, you know, if you don't have first circle, you read a body scroll, you get your second talent. So, you know, for pyromancers, I'm a pyromancer main, as well as a Frostborn main. Those are my two main classes, I would say. So for pyromancers, if you hadn't gotten circle yet, you get athletic, you read a body scroll. Now you would get firefly, and then you would get oh my god, pyrolysis, that great ability, and then you would get conflagration. You know, each time you read a body scroll, your character level goes up, which sounds cool, especially when you start thinking about some toxicologists who now have outbreak really early in the game. That could be a huge benefit. But here's why athletic is a trap, because you will get that benefit, right? It will, like, you know, if you're a toxicologist and you can get outbreak before first circle, you will not only surprise people, but you will have a huge power advantage over certain people. But once fourth circle comes, you know, and I'm strictly speaking about the BR here, so maybe athletic will actually be really, really useful in whatever other game mode that we have going. It might not be a trap there, but for BR, it's a trap, because once we get to fourth circle and once everyone has their 4 class levels, this talent does nothing for you anymore. It's kind of like Curious. Remember when we were talking about Curious from the mine section, and we saw that, you know, it's cool that you have a better chance to find scrolls, and it's cool that your scroll reading speed is increased, but once you read those scrolls, once you find those scrolls, the talent, it's doing nothing for you in combat, and it's doing nothing for you, and it costs 2, I mean, that costs 2 points. Curious does 2 talent points, so that excludes a lot of builds out. In athletic, the same way, athletic costs 4 talent points, so you only have 3 left to do anything. For 2 talent slots, you only have 3 points, which is, I mean, I think just not worth it. For the benefit you get, you know, it's a benefit that you get early on in the game. So maybe if you have trouble getting out of early game, this could be helpful, but it's not going to help you at the end of games at all, and it's not going to help you win games ultimately once you do get into the later rounds. So I think athletic is a big trap. I'll hold back judgment a little bit to see what happens. With the new game mode. It kind of, this seems like such a bad talent to me. For 4 points, it seems like such a bad talent that it has to be useful in the new game mode. Or maybe it's just, you know, it's another talent like Rebirth that is just sort of, it's nice. Maybe it's kind of nice for new players, but if you're a more experienced player, then you're gonna stay away from this one. That could be, you know, what it's useful for. As new players, it gets them their abilities and they figure things out a little bit more. To be honest, I think it'll just cause more confusion than anything else for new players. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see how it breaks down. All right, guys, those were all of the body talents that we just ran through. I hope that was helpful. I hope it helped you sort your mind out as we're thinking about getting into Chapter 2, thinking about the new talent meta that has emerged that we'll get into. Next time, we'll be talking about all the spirit talents. Until then, you know, you can do all the nice YouTube things, like and subscribe. Comment down below what your favorite new talent is. There are some links down there as well if you want to catch my streams live on Twitch. Head into the Discord as well. There's a nice community of fellow breakers in there that'll help you out and answer any questions that you have or anything like that. Until next time, guys.